Oh, no, thank you. I'm fine. Appreciate it.
Cold.
Did you look for the coat?
No, I look for it. It ain't there, man.
Think I might have grabbed the last
I
one.
got this one, man, but one, so let's get going with our meeting. Um, Welcome to Public Safety Committee meeting. I'm joined by Council Hogan, Council Gathers, Council Manto, Penyawa, President Hudson, myself, and Schultz. And I'm joined by
Schultz.
Schultz.
Schultz, he's over here.
Yeah. Councilor Schultz.
Oh, Counselor.
Yeah.
It's me.
No, I've been,
It's all good.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Push it, okay.
It's all good.
And I'm joined by Deputy Mayor and Director Latif as well. Well, we are here to talk about 4 items on the mayor initiative to reduce gun violence, and there are 4 of them. So can we just go line by line to just explain what's going on, and then we jump into questions?
Yeah, sure. So this is the DOJ grant. We were awarded last year, 2022, and we were beginning to implement it. So we know Safer Streets is more dealing with the person. So we have the 50 people. DOJ is more territory, dealing with certain hot spots in the area, information that we receive from SPD of areas in the city that are hot spots. So we have 4 organizations. Number 1 is SNUG, the SNUG organization that's been around for a while. It's state-funded program that we've awarded a grant to cover the north side of the city with outreach. So when we say outreach, simply getting really into the communities, those areas that we've been missing. So we know the north side has been a gap over there of services from the CVI community, which is the Community Violence Intervention organization. So this would be a start to get SNUG. We decided SNUG because they are an organization that's been around for a while. They've been doing the work. They would hire a new person, so it wouldn't be no one that's currently working for SNUG, and we would be a part of that hiring. Then we have street addiction. So street addiction would be, we know Timothy Noble Jennings Bay would be running that program, and that's the South Side. So when I say South Side, to be more particular, dealing with the Bellevue area, all the way down to probably about that boot camp area, that hot spot over there, those areas, they would be covering that area. He would hire possibly 1 to 2 outreach workers that would be in that area. And those hotspots, yeah, you guys have the map there. Then we have OGs Against Gun Violence. They're kind of going to be more south, going down towards the valley area. So from Ostrander, probably down. We know we've been seeing some issues uptick in that Valentine Valley Drive area. So they would cover that area, and he would also hire 1 to 2 outreach workers.
Sorry, I missed that. Who's covering that area?
OGs. So we would do the hiring, President Hudson. So, we would really be looking for individuals that are credible from that area. So we're not looking for people that don't know the area. They got to know that Ostrander, O Block, down to, Ballantyne and Valley Drive. Because you see the question on your face.
So is that how this was distributed amongst the different organizations for them to be more knowledgeable with the certain areas of the city? Is that
Yeah.
how that happened?
Yeah, they need to know the area. So when they're hiring, you can't hire a guy from the east side to work on Bellevue. This doesn't make sense. So
The area needs to know them so that there's communication.
yeah. So they'll know what's going on. The last organization is Good Life. They'll be on the west side. So that Richmond area, not I would say Richmond, going down Sabine is a Sabine, that west side area, not too far from where their offices are. They're located on the near.
area.
Yeah.
Between Sabine and Richmond.
Yeah.
That's two different neighborhoods.
Yeah. So we're hoping they hire more than one outreach worker. They would hire two. And we got to remember, there's no crystal ball that we can throw in the air and answer to every part of the city and to deal with all gun violence. Our job is to reduce gun violence. Our job is to get these organizations into the community. Some of them are already, and I think with the DOJ grant, we're expanding the services that they're already doing. So our goal is to have people, and I will be corrected, Councilman. We're not on Richmond, so more Sabine, Geddes area going down, not Wall Street over there, that hot spot. In my mind, I would love to get someone over there, but we're not it, and I misquote that. So it's more down Geddes. We had a couple shootings. We had a homicide right on the corner of Geddes, and I can't think, it's right by the barbershop. We had a kid shot in the barbershop, that area there, and I can't think of what street that is. Delaware, yeah. So that's more the area they'll be looking at.
The other thing I'll just say is that DOJ is giving us an opportunity around territory to really look at spaces and areas in our community where we didn't have credible messengers and outreach people. So that area that Lateef is talking about, definitely on the north side of town. SNUG has already expanded its staff capacity on the east side.
I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you that question because I know they had one person up here.
They have more
And
people.
now they have more people. 'Cause
Yes.
that east side and so.
The other great thing about just building the capacity is that SNUG now, Syracuse Mountain Neighborhood Facility has now brought on Dr. Mark Muhammad to supervise SNUG, so it's a whole nother level of expertise we're really excited about.
So exactly what is a day-to-day job that they'll be doing? What kind of outreach are we looking at from these different organizations amongst the different, is the plan going to be equal across each side of town, or is there a different tactic for each different quadrant that these different organizations are overseeing?
So would it be the same? So we have a chart a working chart that we'll share with you all that will show for the first 2 months, their job is to get in the community, to find out what's going on, to get a, really like I would say, like a understanding of the community from a point of gun violence and beef. As we know, it's beef. Everybody here knows what beef is. What beefs are happening? So the first 60 days is finding who's beefing with each other. We know that even though it haven't been any homicides, knock on wood, we've been doing very good. And I really think SPD along with our CVIs have been doing the work. But to continue doing that, knowing where the beefs are. So we had a situation over the summer in July where a guy was shot in the bricks. I'm just giving you an example. He was shot in the bricks. Our CVI organizations right away wanted to find out who had beef with who, because he was shot, right? So we know it's going to be a situation afterwards. Their job is to do the same as police do, investigate from a different point of view to find out who's beefing with who and who's going to react to what happened. So taking that same structure to outreach. Let's not wait till where there's a shooting. Let's not wait till there's a homicide, but beat them to the punch. Find out who's beefing and why. Now, we know that doesn't work all the time. Why? Because a lot of times altercations just happen. Two people see each other, it's altercation. It's just a misunderstanding. Something happens, right? So if we can get people in place in those areas, so we knew the altercation that happened on Geddes, there was not an ongoing beef, but it was an altercation that just happened, right? So if we can have people covering those areas to keep their ear to the street to know what's going on, hopefully we can get ahead of some of that. So that's the goal for
And
the first
prevent
60
retaliation.
days. Yeah.
So even if heat of the moment something happens, unfortunately, and people are using guns to settle disputes, the next phase of that is preventing the next shooting or preventing the next form of retaliation, whatever they may be. These folks on the ground will get their ears on the ground about who is talking about retaliating.
In, right, because I just want to ask this question, because I know a lot of it, because there was a case last week in the paper. So I'm trying to figure out how we can get ahead of this, because again, a lot of these folks do know who's who. A lot of these folks do know who's coming out of jail. Somebody came out of jail, 10 years later, you still holding some kind of beef with somebody, so you murdered a person.
Right.
So how do we get a handle on that?
So that's having someone, again, those credible messengers. So the people that will be working with us have to be credible. Credible means more than just doing 15 years in jail, but known in the
I don't
community.
mean that. I'm meaning coming out of jail. How do we intercept them?
So
That's
what
what
I'm
he's
saying, that's
talking
what I'm
about.
getting to. So a credible messenger is not just somebody that spent 15 years in jail. We got a lot of people with the jail, got out, changed their life. A credible messenger is someone people respect, so can stop that. So I can tell you for a fact that there's people that got out of jail over the last 3 months that are now working and doing things and haven't been shot because of certain people that make those phone calls like leave him alone. It's over. That person we have to have on our side. That's what's happening around the country. That's what reduces gun violence. Something this city hasn't seen because we haven't hired them people. So it sounds foreign to us that we actually have people in the city that are credible enough to make a phone call and say, yo, y'all chill out over there.
I've been doing this work for 20 years, so it doesn't sound foreign, but my point is this, right? Because is there a way, maybe Chief Trudell, is there a way, because you know who's about to be released, right?
Chief Richard, as a matter of fact, I just said that to Chief Cecil. So we meet with Outreach every 2 weeks, the crime center. And we go over the crime and the shots fired that occurred in the previous 2 weeks. But what we also know is who's getting out of jail.
Right.
So we know somebody's about to get paroled, and we can bring that information to Outreach that way.
Right, that's where I was getting at.
And we do that, absolutely.
So along with that, the different organizations will be going out, doing their job to have their ears to the ground, to see everything. Then they then report back to the supervisor of that organization, who then reports back to yourself, along with the deputy mayor and also the police department, to develop even deeper.
Yeah, so we meet, as Deputy Chief Trudell said, we meet twice a week. After this meeting, I'm going to meet with the Crime Analysis Center. So we have a continued communication with each other, you know, so we can report back, especially if it's a beef going on. We got to know to stop it on two sides. So we know this CVI ecosystem is not just the organization, but also having law enforcement involved, because some people are not going to stop.
Right.
So, Lateef, how do you measure a credible messenger? What criteria do you look for?
So someone that has respect from the community, and what I was getting at earlier is somebody that has influence, because we haven't seen a lot of people we have a lot of people that say they have influence, but they don't. They talk a good game until they got to get out on these streets. And I know, because I go outside, some people don't know some of the people that say they are known. They're not. I work out every morning with a guy that's credible. And he lets me know what's going on out here. What makes him credible? Not that he spent time in jail, not that he he sold drugs, he did all that, but he changed his life, and he still has respect on these streets. He still has connections with a 13-year-old. Why? Because that 13-year-old dad is who in jail, has been in jail. This guy's made sure he took care of that family. Those things make you credible, not just you saying it or you taking pictures on Facebook with people, but you actually doing the work and are respected by the community, and people know you in the community and have seen your life transform and change. That's a credible messenger.
Not to beat this to death, could you identify one individual credible in your head and just describe the qualities? So that, because I think people are watching as well, and you know, this is an important work. And just pick one person and describe them for us. What is that like?
So number one, the person that I choose, someone that has integrity, someone that doesn't come in front of the community and say they're doing something they're not doing it.
And this is one of the
yes,
the coordinators.
100%.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Hasn't.
They're not living a lukewarm life.
They decided once that was it. 4 or 5 years ago, they made a decision I can't do both things. I can't live a life that I'm living in, and also that's part of integrity. That I made a decision to stop doing what I'm doing because I want to see my community change. Someone that has made almost a public transformation that people know publicly, like, yo, that used to be that dude. He was out here heavy. Not just the nickel and diamond who spent 2 summers on the street and went to jail, but somebody that actually probably pushed some weight around. Somebody, when I go talk to SPD, they know who he is, and they like, wow, okay, he changed? Yeah, because this is serious stuff. Because, and they can't be this known everywhere. A credible messenger can't always be able to just to go to the east side. I question a guy that's able to go to the east side and stop a beef, but then also be able to go on 110th and stop a beef. That's a stretch. We know that, right? Dr. Chico Tillman came here over a year ago, and we talked about those people that say things like that oftentimes we got to find out if they're credible. So to me, it's somebody that has integrity, somebody life that has been a public transformation, and somebody that is known in the community, that is impacting the community without getting a paycheck, that has went out and helped others without being known. This person I'm talking about, nobody in this room knows him on that side, but you will know who he is, and doesn't want to be seen on Instagram and Facebook passing out, pamphlets, but it's like really wants to do the work because they know what damage they may have caused to families and now wanting to see a change. That's, to me, is a credible messenger.
So who get to write the job description? Do the coordinators themselves work with you to figure that out? Because I know this is new. Who get to write that?
So they're the employee of the organization, but the development of the job description and what we're looking for, that criteria, they work with Latif to establish that.
With all of those characteristics in mind, I would assume that hiring pool is going to be pretty small as far as a pool of candidates.
It's pretty small.
How many do you need total?
So we have 4 organizations, and we could have from 4 to 8, depending on if they're part-time or full-time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a 9-to-5 desk job. I would assume that the pool is pretty small.
Yeah.
It's not 9 to 5, definitely not 9 to 5, because the other thing that Latif, in addition to what he said, we're doing the on the ground, ear on the ground, but they're also responding. So, Latif is finding out this happened, we need to get to the folks because the retaliation starts instantly. That planning starts instantly. So people who are flexible and be able to get out on the ground all time of night.
Do you have a pool of people that you've already cultivated that you're going to start with, or is this?
Yeah, that's been my job over the last year and a half, is cultivating that group. And the group that we're talking about is guys that don't get paid. When we had the shooting in the bricks, it was guys out there that don't get a check, and they really helped stop something else from happening, retaliation that night, by telling people to get in the car and go home. Those credible messengers.
How do you measure success with those reports? Is it a metric that you have to submit to DOJ?
Yeah.
Is it testimonials that you hope trends go down?
So I think it's both. So having that qualitative data, which is just word of mouth, things I'm telling you about things that happen, but also having the quantitative data, and that's through our data analyst that is paid through the DOJ grant, and her job is really to set up and make sure we have something in place. So we come back, we have a system, a matrix of, hey, this is how many shootings they stopped, this is how many arguments they stopped. So we really have a good look at that. So we have a data analyst that's going to be capturing all that.
Another matrix is our work driving down the incidences of gun violence in collaboration with the police, because it doesn't work in isolation of each other. Is it driving down the gun violence in the area? So you see the map, and it's a pretty large, but sometimes that's one block. Can we reduce the amount of activity going on that block? And then ensuring that's not spilling over into another block. Are we impacting the fact that an individual known to SPD as a shooter stops being a shooter? I don't think that we can say.
Could you say that over again, Deputy Mayor? That's sort of like, it doesn't resonate with me. Somebody who's a shooter, known by the SPD
known
to be
as a shooter, and we're engaging with them to ensure that they stop that, stop reacting like that. Yeah, and the only person that can really influence an individual who has actually gotten to the point in their life where they can pump that trigger and shoot someone other than being arrested, is a credible messenger who may have generational relationship to say, listen, I've been there. That road is not taking you anywhere. It's not, you may feel like you exonerated yourself or someone else, but it's not going to stop with you. It may affect your family, which, Council President just talked about. I mean, just retaliations.
Well, I'm more worried about affecting the neighborhood. I mean, certainly bullets flying around. Obviously, this community's been severely hurt by other people, unintended victims.
Yep.
Of gun violence.
Yeah.
And I know obviously with somebody released from prison on probation, obviously they can't, they get caught with a gun, they're going to go back to jail.
Right.
And I would think that the police department who's already knows a shooter who it might be a shooter is someone that the police department is aware of and I would imagine sort of keeps an eye on.
Yeah, and determined on what they're engaged in right now, this may not be an avenue that we're doing any credible messenger with, because the police may already have plans for that individual, depending on what they're engaged in right now.
And I think that's the important part, Councilman Hogan, of us meeting with SPD every other week and staying in close contact. Every individual won't stop shooting. There's some that gonna go to jail, and there's no way out of that. My background is working in prisons. There's some that have to be incarcerated for correction. There's others that can get in the program and listen to someone, but we know there's someone that won't listen. So we're not being facetious and saying we're going to stop everyone, but we will meet with SPD and law enforcement to make sure we do stop the ones that, and I want to say that publicly. Yeah, if you don't want to stop, you're going to jail. Or we'll have a funeral for you. You got to make a choice.
Right.
But we are setting these things up and getting these credible messages in place that someone that has been a shooter maybe 25 years ago and has changed their life, they might can talk to that shooter before you or I can speak to that guy and get him to put the gun down and stop.
So this grant, are we applying for the grant, or will we receive
You
it?
all approved the application, we received it.
We already received it?
We received this. And so you approved a couple months ago. You approved a couple of months ago Salvation Army that's going to be doing some family counseling around this issue. But this really gives us an opportunity, as we talked about Safer Streets was really 50 people. This is really looking at places, spaces,
So this would be a separate program than the American Rescue Plan money?
but
that
all
we spent for
intertwined,
Syracuse.
but all intertwined.
So how could I'm wondering how the Safe Streets program is going. I mean, that was, we passed
Yep.
legislation 4 months ago.
Yep, so I think I reported at the council president asked me a question that we finally got contracts done. That was a new process for many of the agencies. The first move for us now is to get the hired outreach people from the 2 agencies you approved. Lateef is engaged in that as we speak. The idea is to get them hired and on the ground in January. Counseling, the 2 counseling agencies, same path. They're starting, now that we have contracts, starting hiring, and then the behavioral health therapy is the last tier of that, because you have to get the outreach done, get them assigned to a counselor, and then begin to get them into the therapy sessions.
We're still in like initial stages.
Winding up, we just finished the contracting. And so,
Has any of the money, I mean, we're doing all this contract and all that, has any of the money flowed into these organizations already?
not yet, because
So
it's
we're not-
reimbursable. We reimburse. So one thing that we implemented, and really want to thank Eric Ennis and Sedco, is that I knew that some of these agencies would have trouble with hiring and paying, knowing they're going to get reimbursed. So Sedco has set up a program for them to be able to get, I believe it's 20% of the contract up front, so they can have seed money to go, and then we pay ourselves back out of the contract, out of the reimbursements. I really am talking to Eric about expanding that option for other organizations or other businesses or other programs, because it is the upfront seed money.
Who's fronting the money?
Fronting a percentage of their contract, and the contract is the leverage for us to get paid back. So they invoice us, we amortize the entire amount that they got a loan for, and they pay us back incrementally over the contract. we pay ourselves back first. So Setco's getting paid back. It was the way to ensure they had the seed money to get started.
We're layering this grant money, which we already received, onto this. It's two different programs.
Two different approaches to the same thing. We're trying to reduce gun violence. Safer streets, we're really looking at individuals driving violence. This, we really felt like there were gaps in territories that we didn't have people on the ground. DOJ is giving us the funding to be able to get more legs on the ground on the north side in particular, and that area of the west side, that there really wasn't an agency over there.
So what I envision, Councilman Hogan, is that we would have this community public safety ecosystem with the funding we received to create this office. So, and that's just, President Huss, that's why it says like new to us, because we are just creating from the start this, and so we're taking funding from DOJ, we have other funding put together to create this community public safety, and that's the Mayor's Office of Reduce Gun Violence. In that, we'll have where we deal with safer streets, where we deal with the person, top 50 high-risk individuals, but then we also have funding DOJ, which is going to deal with territories, and to really expand some of the programs that we already have going on in our community.
And remember, and you probably didn't because we talked about this months ago, but on the other side of this is even non-city work going on. The county with Damian Pratt, with the juvenile justice, Project Rise, which is the DCJS money, and that is all of the kids who are under 18 that they're working with.
So the credible messengers obviously play a pivotal role in both Safer Streets and these.
Yes.
How do we keep them safe?
So one way is ongoing training. Latif is holding one next week.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday. Ongoing training. Giving them parameters for what you do and what you don't do. You are not Superman or Superwoman. You are not there to get in the way of bullets or knives. That's what, not that I want you guys to get in the way of bullets or knives, but that is what our law enforcement is for. So really giving them structured parameters for how you are to engage.
And that's part of being a credible messenger, to know when to say, oh, no, I ain't going over there. Like, you have to know those things already. Nobody had, some things we train, some things ought to be natural to know when it comes to someone, again, that's credible. If I got to tell you to move with something popping off, then you ain't a credible messenger. I should be able to be with, and I've been with credible messengers, and they tell me, yo, Red, we got to roll out. They know when it's time to go, or they know when, and they say, oh, these young boys crazy. No, we ain't not going to do this today, right? We have to make sure the people we're hiring are knowledgeable of the street and have street smarts, are savvy to know when it's safe and when it's not safe. On top of that, we have our TA, that is who we're working with through DOJ. They've given us some organization that we're working with out of Newark, New Jersey, that's really helping us with a lot of the credible messenger training that will be, I think we're going to a training in February. So we're going to expand our knowledge and understanding of credible messenger and staying safe.
That's one thing about this grant that I noticed was new from Washington, was that it also incorporated a lot of technical assistance. The government, the feds, contracted with multiple national organizations who do training in this area, and typically that doesn't come as a partnership. They give us the money and say, go forth, but not this time. We've been going through a lot, I think every 2 weeks, we're meeting with that TA team.
So looking at this map, the south side looks like it's very well covered, but the north side, once again, has its hot spot of Butternut Street. We don't have anything in Washington Square, and I'm just wondering why the resources seem to be not symmetrical.
So much of it is driven by what we understand as hotspots, and it's also driven by, and it is a nuance, Counselor, because it's driven by where the shots are fired predominantly, and I cannot say this without understanding how the north side feels. Predominantly, the shots are fired, and the data tells us where the shots are fired. Those maps are their territories. At any time, Latif would say, we all need to be over on East Fayette Street. We all need to go over to Butternut Street. Anytime that can happen.
And I think another thing to think about is we can respond So when I received the text message from SPD, we at least have someone in the area besides me that can respond with me to a situation and kind of help us assess what's going on. So that's a start. I would like to expand that, but that's just going to take time, money to do that. So we can expand it.
And if I can, Counselor, because when they first started, they had just said that the north side is new to them. So that's why they put that money in to expand the north side, because I'm going to actually piggyback on top of you and ask, at some point, do you plan to hit that Richmond Wall Street area?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So this DOJ grant gave us the opportunity to add new territories.
Yeah.
This will be our focus going forward, is where are there gaps geographically in our city that we need to build upon? And every time we write, that is what we're writing, to build upon this ecosystem, and particularly find those areas. And hopefully that's one area, get more help on the east side of town, get more help specific to communities that have English as a second language.
Tell you, to get rid of 139 North Geddes Street, that would probably improve that area quite a bit.
Try to build it down behind it.
Yeah, I know.
So to the point of place-based territorial dissemination of this work, they also help us with trouble spaces, spots, so that we can be able to work with
I can
codes
say-
and everybody else.
If I could say, E.J. Donovan, Subtag, it's real.
They're fabulous.
And I know other cities have started to do that. It's been great as far as the north side.
Other cities do it, but I'm gonna pat us on the back because the coordinated effort between DPW, EJ, code enforcement
Land
is
bank, it's got a
amazing.
lot to do with
The
that,
la-
too, yeah.
the
I mean,
land bank-
EJ's he's made connections all that through that area as far as that.
That coordinated SEPTED effort of the city of Syracuse across departments, one I've been told has been nothing they've ever seen before from people who have been here a long time, and it really needs to be demonstrated as a model. And I'm going to say this on the mic, we've been waiting for money from DCJS for months that they've committed to beef up that effort.
Remind us again, what was the amount that we applied for, Deputy Mayor?
It was 1.4.
1.4?
Yes.
1.4.
Okay,
So
we
we-
got it, we got it all?
We got it all, so we have to expend over 2 years, and it
Okay.
probably will come out again, if not this year, in '25, and we'll apply again.
And then when you do apply, then you're gonna beef up the north side and you're gonna beef
East
up
side
that rich.
and-
Okay.
We're filling in spaces. We're filling in spaces.
This budget says 169,000, so where does that 1 point?
That
It's
is
all-
just
all
that
those.
contract.
It's different contracts.
That's just
That's
for
more
that
than
contract.
More here. Different, 4 of them, yeah. That's 2 more.
Okay,
So what
Thanks.
what we presented for the council's consideration are 4 individual agency contracts. And they will hire outreach people. The other component was the family therapy, which you approved a couple months ago.
My question is to the SPD. With all of this going on, Chief or Chief, any one of you, with all of this going on, where do you see in terms of your work as how is it helping you? Do what you do? Because
The SPD always sits in the last row, like with the widows and orphans at 10 o'clock mass at Rosary, like, you guys can always sit up in the front here,
It's too intimidating up here. Way too intimidating.
You're cops, you don't get intimidated.
So it's a great question. The way we see this, and I've said this publicly before, we've been doing enforcement for as long as I came on. The coordination of it between our law enforcement partners is better than it's ever been before, but we'll continue to do enforcements. The ultimate way that this gun violence is going to go down, and keep in mind, our newest number just today, 43% fewer people shot, just came out yesterday. That's been as high as 47%. So all of this is working, but the ultimate solution to gun violence is not going to be enforcement, because we've been doing it for years, and and we're very good at it. The ultimate solution is just what Lateef mentioned and what the Deputy Mayor mentioned, is people out there getting other people to put the guns down and take a different, not just put the guns down, but take a different pathway. Because that pathway they're on leads 2 places. Lateef mentioned it, either the graveyard or prison. They need to get folks that they listen to, that get them to not only put the guns down, but take a different pathway, a successful pathway that I believe if you had a one-on-one conversation with someone and you actually spoke to them and they didn't think anyone else was listening, anyone, even the hardened people, the hardened criminals and shooters and everyone else would say they don't want that pathway. They are looking for some other pathway. So the answer is simply that. The ultimate solution is never going to come through enforcement. It's going to come through people getting people to put the guns down and take a different pathway. That's how we'll ultimately reduce that number and move that number past 47, 50, 60, and even higher. Not through enforcement alone, but through what Latif's doing in his credible messengers.
Chief, how many guns do you take off the street every year?
This year we're up to 253, I think is the last number I just heard. We're up 2% from last year, which was higher than the year before and the year before. So it continues to get higher, but officers continue to pull more and more illegal guns off the street.
When somebody's arrested with a gun, I mean, depending if they're an adult, what, as far as the court system goes, what happens?
Yeah, it runs the gamut. I don't know if there's any strict, Rich might know, but I don't think there's any strict. Yeah, it's kind of.
Can I ask one quick question, and between all of you, maybe you can answer it, right? Because I've been trying for years, because there is a cost to gun violence, okay? For every person hit, we're paying for it. Is there any way that you guys, maybe you could get the numbers from the hospital on what the cost of gun violence is?
We can reach out to the trauma hospital to find out on average what the cost is of caring for us.
Annually, I would like to see it annually, what the cost is costing us as taxpayers.
Yeah, I can reach out to the president's office to find out if we can get some of that information.
Chief, 75% of those guns are from out of state?
Yeah, so I know DC Trudell knows the exact number. So,
Yeah. In two major areas.
When it comes to handguns, it's upwards of 90+% of handguns. When you start to look at long guns included, that number starts to drop. But our handguns are not sourced from New York State. They're not stolen in burglaries. They're not stolen from cars. Although it happens, the vast majority of them are trafficked from states that have different protocols on purchasing.
South?
Yes, south or west, Ohio, South Carolina, Florida, states where you need a driver's license to get a
Georgia.
to get a handgun. Georgia,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So literally, people are driving down south, bringing those guns back in and peddling them on our streets.
What happens is somebody who's a resident of that state who can legally buy a gun in that state, it's called straw purchasing. They know somebody up here, a family member, whatever. They'll go into that store, they'll purchase a number of handguns. Either they'll give it to the individual that lives here and they'll bring it up, or we've done cases where the people down in different states actually transport the guns to New York State.
We just had a huge bust.
We've had
Yep.
several, yes, absolutely. 2 or 3 just in the last, since COVID.
Yep.
So Chief, the trajectory was at some point on the south end, guns were coming out of North Carolina. That changed?
North Carolina is up there, but it's not one of our top tier states. Yeah. And that fluctuates. It is really relationship based. It is people that have ties to different states. What is the common denominator is it's always a state that has less restrictions on what you need in order to buy a handgun.
Wasn't Pennsylvania one of those states?
It's not ringing a bell.
Chief, do you have the percentage of ghost guns that have been recovered on traffic stops?
Not percentage, but that number is high. I can get that for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Is traffic stops, and Councilor Gather's point, traffic stops effective as far as getting guns off the street?
They are effective. And I think it kind of relates to your question. I think it's super important to know that when it comes to our gun recoveries, we're making arrests 78% of the times we recover a gun. So almost 80% of the times we're grabbing a gun off the street, it comes with an arrest. That number is different when you look back 4 or 5 years ago. Used to be a lot of gun recoveries and not a lot of quality arrests. We're recovering, as the chief mentioned, we're recovering more guns and we're recovering more guns with arrest, which could be attributed to a traffic stop, a long-term investigation. Somebody's going to jail based on that gun.
And the technology is aiding tremendously in that area because we're able to on a faster track, analyze that gun and whether it was associated with a crime.
Absolutely true.
So with that, Chief, how many of the focused population of the 18 to 24 are in that group right there, of group of getting the gun from them?
So, I'm not sure I understand your question. Can you,
So
can you
I'm
say it
saying
again?
from the group that we are focusing
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so we provided that number, we provided those names, the Crime Analysis Center, based on a specific set of criteria, gun prior arrest, one of them. Those names came from SPD and the Crime Analysis Center, so that's where they came from. So there's definitely coordination in our top offenders being part of this list. That's what it was designed for.
But I'm asking specifically for the group that is that you are getting the gun from, that you are taking the gun from.
So I don't have an age breakdown of arrest, but that is certainly something that we can, like we did for the stolen vehicles,
Yeah.
right? We saw that juveniles were a vast majority of that. We can do the same thing for gun arrests. I just don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay, can I get that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Number two to that, how do we know if the gun was coming from North Carolina? Is it a word of the mouth from the folks, or is there's identification?
So the deputy mayor mentioned technology. There's two things that we do when we recover a gun, okay? We do a trace on it. And what that is every time you do purchase a gun, whether you purchase it in a state that only requires a driver's license or whether you purchase it in New York State, you have to fill out an ATF form. And that ATF form is that source origin state. So when we do a trace, we have the gun, we have the serial number, we send to ATF all the information on that gun, and they trace it back to that original source state. That's how we know where guns are coming from. There's also something called NIBIN, and it's a ballistics imaging program where based on the firing pin, this is very technical, but based on the firing pin hitting the primer and the ejection marks, we can tell that a casing came from a particular gun, just like a fingerprint comes from a particular person.
And follow that gun across the country.
Yeah. So we
Based
can
on
check
that
to see.
system.
Yeah.
As if the gun was involved in a crime, right?
Yeah, well, if there's a shots fired, we got the casings, we can match, and we can say casings from 3 different shootings and a homicide all came from the same gun. Or when we get the gun and they do a test fire on it, then we can match the casing from that test fire to those other crimes. Yes, absolutely.
Has there been coordination between, I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but has there been coordination maybe with the Attorney General and state of New York to kind of figure out some kind of lawsuit for these states that are reckless with their guns?
So I'm not, to answer your specific question, I'm not familiar with a lawsuit against, like we have seen against Kia or something like that.
Right.
But as far as coordination goes, I can speak
Definitely.
super heavy to that, and there's a ton of coordination. At the state level, there's coordination with DCJS on GIVE, and every single year you guys approve a GIVE grant for us for funding. There's coordination at the mayor's office level with the Onondaga County Coalition to Reduce Gun Violence, where every stakeholder in the county is at. So there's a ton of coordination when it comes to affecting gun violence. I'm just not familiar with any sort of
Well, I'm
lawsuits.
gonna answer the lawsuit question. I've been trying to get from Andrew Cuomo on down to file lawsuits against the states that the guns are coming in on. They have no appetite to touch that. They gave me a reasoning, but I can't remember the reason why, because I did go to AG James and ask the same question, why can't we sue these states?
Above my pay grade.
So with that, anybody else got a question on these 4 items that we got here? So with the full contract, this finished the grant, basically?
This will get us all
For
for
2 years.
DOJ for 2 years, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yep. So don't have one map with all of them, break it out for each agency? Okay. I don't know who created the map, but they could do that. Okay. Okay,
Anything else?
thank you.
That will do it for us. Thank you all.
There's such a thing called a stapler. A little out of order.
Hello? It was just working fine for me.